we can identify some of the modern nations in this 2,500-year-old prophecy plus. Yes, we can identify some. Okay, let's recall the most important nations mentioned in chapter 38. HASHEM. דקרא סתרו שמתנת יעקב. Meshech, Tubal, Persia, Ethiopia, Put, Gomer, and Togarmah. Okay, from this list, Persia is identifiable today. And after Persia, Ethiopia is also identifiable today. Well, the topic of Persia in this prophecy is very complex. It's very complex because we have to define as a model of prophetic interpretation if it refers to Persia in the strict sense, or if it is about Persia in the imperial sense. If it is strict, and that is the prophetic model we use. So Persia is the current nation of Iran, with the capital Tehran, which corresponds to the ancient Persian. But if it is imperial, and we use the imperial model, then it is something totally different. Why? Because Persia could be a prophetic reference to the ancient Persian Empire, which corresponds to the silver chest in the prophetic image of chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. If so, then Persia has to be defined very differently from what it is today. These are the geographical borders of Iran. In this case, Persia, in this prophecy from Ezekiel, could be a reference to the ancient Persian Empire, which the Bible talks about, by the way. Persia was one of the largest and most powerful empires of antiquity. Covered a vast territory. It included a variety of nations and conquered regions. Read the book of Esther. It also includes Media, the region of Media, northwest of Persia, which was conquered by Cyrus the Great and became a fundamental part of the Persian Empire. It includes Babylon too. The Persian Emperor conquered Babylon, remember, 539 BCE. Included it in its empire. It included all of Mesopotamia, the entire ancient city of Babylon with its territories. The Persian Empire included Elam, a region in the southwest of the empire. And they also included Egypt. The Persian Empire, it included Egypt. Egypt was conquered by the successor of Cyrus the Great. It was incorporated into the Persian Empire in 525 BCE. Includes Asia Minor, imagine Asia Minor, which is today part of Turkey, which was conquered by the Persians. So if we take the prophecy from Ezekiel about Persia and we expanded it, so this includes what is today Iran, nowadays Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Turkey, Jordan, and Egypt. Can you imagine how many countries are going to participate in the Gog and Magog war now? Okay. But besides Babylon, any other cities from the regions of Mesopotamia were part of the Persian Empire, like Assyria, and was part of the Persian Empire. Parthia was part of the Persian Empire. Parthia occupied what is today a region of Iran. Turkmenistan Sorry to the brothers in that region, because this is a complicated name to pronounce. All those surrounding regions. Turkmenistan was part of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. In 1991, with what happened, it gained its independence from the Soviet Union and became a sovereign country. But it is included in what was formerly the Persian empires. And that includes not only Turkmenistan, but also Kazakhstan. Also include Uzbekistan. Also include what I mentioned, Afghanistan. Includes Iran, includes the Caspian Sea. Of strategic importance, the Caspian Seas. Very important, because through that Caspian Sea, these nations share maritime borders with the countries of that region, with Azerbaijan, which is another one that was also part of the Persian Empire. You realize who will participate in this war of Gog and Magog now in the expanded model of Persia. But there is more still, because Phrygia was a part of the Persian Empire. It means that if we follow the expanded Persian model, then we must also include Phrygia in Asia Minor, and that includes ancient Anatolia. It includes the Aegean Sea, the Black Sea, and part of the Mediterranean. That region was dominated by the Persians. That's where the cities of Troy were, from Ephesus, from Pergamon. All that is under Turkish control at the moment. So if we take the prophecy in its most expanded form, the war of Gog and Magog will include all these nations that I have mentioned. I will summarize it now, although not exhaustively, but at least so we have an idea of how many nations will participate in this war. Here we go. Ross message. Tubal, Ethiopia, Put, Gomer, Togarma, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, and Jordan. Did you count them? That's quite a few. There are quite a few. We are talking about almost 20 nations that will rise against Israel in the war of Gog and Magog. All this multitude of nations is impressive what we are talking about here. But now I am going to give you some other classified information prophetically as a huge with geopolitical importance and value. Geopolitical. All these countries have one way or another strategic access to the Aegean Sea, to the Sea of Marmara, the Black Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea.
That is to say,
and when you have a region with many seas and ports, it makes it much more dangerous, because communication routes in a war are fundamental. they'll have access to the Aegean Sea, the Sea of Marmara, the Black Sea, and to the Mediterranean Sea. And now I am going to share another extraordinarily important piece of data, classified from a prophetic point of view, which has a huge prophetic implication in the topic at hand. Because now we have to identify the most complex part of the entire prophecy, which is who are Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. Who is Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal? Some eschatologists have seen a connection by analogy of expressions between Rosh and Rosha. And they have seen a relationship by analogy of Magog and Moscow expressions. Moscow has seen a relationship, but I'm not convinced. That argument does not convince me. To tell the truth, we don't know. Exactly what region is the ancient Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal today? Flavius Josephus. He wrote a book saying those names were all lost, and that it was no longer possible to identify exactly who they were. We are talking about the information that comes to us from Flavius Josephus from the end of the 1st century, of a prophecy that for the time of Flavius Josephus was 500 years old plus. Yes, so Meshech. Let's think about Meshech. Just like Rosh, the exact location of Meshech is uncertain. Have been suggested various locations, including northern Anatolia or regions further east, but there is no consensus. There is no consensus on its precise identification. Tubal has also been the subject of much debate. In my personal opinion, I prefer to identify Tubal with the Caucasus, and if it's about the current Caucasus, because those are the regions being discussed. So, the prophetic puzzle is extremely complex, because other important players like Chechnya are at stake here. The Chechens are extreme. Ask Putin, what are the Chechens like? Chechnya, Dagestan, Georgia, Armenia, Ingushetia, all those regions. They are included in the Caucasus. And of course, geographic borders and the names of these regions have changed throughout history. And that's why it gets very complicated. Accurately identify these places today. But roughly we could suggest then, based on Ezekiel's prophecy and based on the list of nations we already know, will be involved in this final war of Gog and Magog. So they would be as follows. So let's do the math again. Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, Ethiopia, Put, Jomer, Togarma, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Jordan, Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia, Ossetia, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. How much do I give? It gave us 25. If we add Gog's own 26, it gave us. So if we analyze the prophecy even more, let's identify another very important factors. First, what are the current nations? Think about that. This is another classified piece of information. Prophetically, what are the current nations considered world powers? What greater influence do they have on these 26 nations we have mentioned, including Gorkhas? There are only 3 nations in the world that have influence over this nation, are the United States, Russia, and China. So in the war of Gog and Magog, it seems that we will see a strong strategic and military presence of the United States, Russia, and China. Second, this is a decision. This is probably the most important thing to know right now. Tell the person next to you, open your eyes. Don't fall asleep. Open your eyes, don't miss it. Someone better not do any mitzvahs at that time, right? All right. Possibly the most important thing at the time of this prophetic lecture is the following. What is the dominant religion in Ethiopia? Put, Goma, Togarma, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Iran, Kuwait, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Jordan. Hey Willie, what is the dominant religion in all these nations mentioned here? Here is the answer. Here are the answers. There are 2 religions involved here. 2. One is Christianity, like the case of Ethiopia, and the other one is Islam. In other words, we could assume, based on all this, that the war of Gog and Magog, the mother of all wars, will be a war led by Islamic ideology, because the rest are religious minorities. Religious minorities. The core of all these nations, which according to the prophecy of Ezekiel, that is 2,500 years old, that will participate against Israel in the war of Gog and Magog, will be Muslim nations. In other words, using modern language, it is a global jihad against Israel based on the ideology of Islam. Now, behind that jihad, there are the 3 great world powers that have influence in this region, which are the United States, Russia, and China. Therefore, the United States, Russia, and China will be involved. One way or another in this mother of wars, if we add this to it, if we add to this the information that comes to us from another prophet, we will have a much clearer picture. And it is about the prophet Zacharias. Zechariah tells us the objective of the war as documented in his prophecy. Chapter 12 says the prophet, and I quote for you, prophecy of the words of the Lord about Israel. The Eternal who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundations of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him, declares, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a breathtaking cup for all the surrounding peoples. And when there is a siege against Jerusalem, there will also be one against Judea. And it shall come to pass in that day that Jerusalem will become a heavy stone for all peoples." Jerusalem, which means city of peace. That's what Yerushalayim means. City of peace. Will it be the target, the objective of the worst and most terrible war ever experienced by humanity? Continues saying the prophet Zechariah, and against it they will gather Goi Haaretz, all the United Nations, Therefore, the prophecy itself suggests that the United Nations will be behind it. The war of Gog and Magog